Greetings, fellow humans. I'm out here in the desert, and I just wanted to show you that this wonderful, beautiful canyon that we got here. Canyons are probably one of my favorite aspects of the desert. And there's this awesome sunrise, or sunset, excuse me. And just, yeah, there's nothing quite like being in the outdoors or being in a space that is so quiet with nobody else around, where you can just sit here and for me, the outdoors and reflection, there's always if there is something bothering me, then it comes up the most. If there's something that I know that I need to do, this is it in my mind is this giant megaphone yelling and screaming at me of what I need to do. And sometimes it's really hard to take that feeling, that intuition into practice. I've had to learn that a few times, and probably maybe need to relearn it again here too. And I just moving the body is also another thing that I just greatly enjoy, and there's so much space out here. And yeah, there are a lot of things that you need to be aware of when you're out in the desert, so that you can help protect it and preserve it for future generations. And that's a couple things that really stand out to me as far as being out here. And I think for me, I wanted to be a teacher, and but I didn't want to be just go to college, become a teacher, teach, because the teachers that I respected the most were the ones who went out, did the thing, and then came back. I can specifically remember I had a physics teacher, and he was an engineer, and I was always just really was impressed by that. And even in college, of you just heard these college professors who this is their secondary thing that they're doing, and I always respected them way more, because it was oh yeah, you know what you're talking about, because you've done it, and you can link this small, what sometimes feels really silly thing in the classroom to well, this is a really actually important thing that you need to know, or a topic or a conversation or a principle. And as I've continued in this outdoor world that I so enjoy, I've really valued being able to take people out of their normal routine and start building them up, because I think being in a new environment can sometimes break you down. And as far as you're worrying about being dirty, you're worrying about bugs, you're worrying about how the heck are you going to make food, and maybe you're even worried about where you're going to sleep that night, because sleep is really important. And even in the backcountry, I'm a sucker for sleep. And just being generally uncomfortable, and then you can start as you adapt and get used to it. And I think that being out here can also teach students and people that you're stronger than you realize. And that's something that I have finally started to believe in myself, of I have done a lot of things and now I'm good at these things. And that is things that people that are out there would never dream of doing, or would never have any desire to do. But until you push yourself, and for me, part of my growth also was in the fact that I have worked with challenging student groups who one student, I swear, magnified the energy and the amplitude of the entire group. I was working with these middle schoolers, and it was oh my gosh, this kid, he ended up leaving the program. Oh, and once he left, it was oh my gosh, here's a normal set of kids. They're still just kids. They're not just worshiping to some extent, this kid who was there, who's just making the most noise, had the most energy, and just was not super helpful for anything. And it's like those are the groups where like nothing goes right, where they just don't like you, or you have one student. And it also teaches you to like, being out here, one of the things of like being an instructor and like dealing with specifically behavioral things, the goal is to like call them in, like bring those students in, like see if you can't figure out what's wrong, what is missing. And this is something that I learned as a sociology minor, and that's like definitely by far the best part of college for me, was like doing this minor and being able to make connections of theory to reality. And that was something that a lot of people didn't like to do. Theory classes was like, oh god, theory, and I'm like, theory, like let's talk and let's like figure it out and all this other stuff. Anyway, and on that trip I like didn't have any of those tools. It was my first time as a trip lead, and I worked as best as I could to like help him out. Unfortunately, he ended up leaving because he had a sprained ankle. Because when you're backpacking, when your feet are your primary mode of transportation, a sprained ankle really hits pretty hard in terms of like ability. And that trip also was like really inspiring to me, because like I had this like, there was a group of girls, and one of them was from like, has grown up doing outdoor things, and her dad does what she refers to as, they will pick death marches, where it's they pick up, the dad picks a point and it's like, we're gonna hike all the way to that point, and it's usually pretty far. And it's funny because she refers to them as death marches, and it's like, no, not even close. And like this like group of girls, they were really proficient and capable, and it was really cool to see them just like go up over this like pass. And like the backpacking stuff was very much underneath their ability level. But then I had this like group of boys who, like, one of them, he was like was into MMA. He was just like really a tough kid overall, and like he also sprained his ankle too. And it was like, then the other boys, like we just like all were around him, and it was like there's another kid too who's like just not necessarily feeling that great, and there's like probably 3 or 4 of us, including myself, and we just kept going. Like we were not fast. We were probably like 3 to 5 minutes behind the group in front of us. And it really is just like incredible to be like, sometimes, going over the pass is the hardest part. The other part of this is that like we originally were going to plan on going to the pass and then summiting a peak and then coming back down, but there were just like too many things that were going the other way. And we were able to like get up there, and it was like maybe not the most celebratory thing that we've ever done, but it was definitely like, that was like, for those of us in the back, that was hard. And we were all like sharing in that hard. And sometimes I hear the rhetoric, or have heard the rhetoric of like men or male identifying people feeling like they have to be the lone wolf. And so you have these males who are in their mid 50s and have a high suicide rate because they don't have anyone, because they've leaned on their female counterparts for friends and connections. And like that was like an example of like, hey, like we're out here, we're doing this, and we're doing it together. And like, to me, that's, part of when I go out, even with friends, and like I'm ahead of the people that I'm with, I very much always make sure that we may not be together the whole time, but I will always make sure that we finish together. I think that's something about leadership that is crucially important, and it just takes the time and the repetition to build that confidence to where you know that that's the right move. because I think, especially in this day and age when when it's really easy to not see people face to face, being in places and environments where you have to be face to face, where like things are hard, can really show you how much harder things actually were for people hundreds or thousands of years ago was, and it can also prove to you that you're stronger than you actually are. So know that whatever you're going through, whatever you feel like is hard, it is hard. Hard is hard, period. And realize that you are stronger than what you think.